Now, I'm sure if you've been on social media, you've seen the comparisons between Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Ja Morant, and DeAaron Fox. These three are fairly similar to each other in terms of play style, their feel for the game, and they're roughly around the same age, so naturally people are going to compare the three. And in today's video, I may not be including Shai in this conversation, but I wanted to touch on the comparison between Ja Morant and DeAaron Fox. Now, if you guys don't know how I do my versus videos, let me just give you guys a quick little update. I talk about both players, their strengths and weaknesses, and then at the end I reveal who is the better player and why I believe so. But before I get too deep into my bag, let me give a shout out to the Nothing But Action podcast. We recently dropped episode 36. You guys have been showing love to that episode on audio platforms and on the YouTube channel. We ranked the top 50 players in the NBA, which obviously led to some pretty controversial opinions, so make sure you go and check that out. A link should be down below in the description box as well as a card on the screen. But without further ado, let's get things started and talk about the first player of this video, and that is the swiper himself, DeAaron Fox.
You keep being bringing and waiting for you to make mistakes. Fox did it to him again. DeAaron Fox.
When you talk about the best young point guards in the NBA that have the potential to be one of the elite ones moving forward in his career, DeAaron Fox is definitely in that conversation, and one could argue that he is at the top of this list. As already by year 4, he is an all-star caliber player who's averaging 25 points a game along with 7 assists and just short of 4 rebounds and 2 steals, shooting 48% from the field, 32% from behind the arc, and 72% at the free throw line. And though he was not an all-star last year, let's be quite frank here, he's in the Western Conference, and when you're in a conference that features Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, Luka Doncic, and Donovan Mitchell, it's going to be damn near impossible to be a guaranteed all-star in that kind of conference. I mean, think about it, Devin Booker was an all-star replacement. That should really tell you all you need to know. But when it comes to DeAaron Fox the player, his strengths really reside when it comes to his finishing and playmaking, as due to his speed and athleticism, he can quickly move around defenders with quick-like handles, especially bigs whenever they switch onto him, which obviously helps him in transition and has established him as one of the better finishers in the NBA. But aside from finishing, he has evolved as a playmaker as well, as his vision helps him especially in transition when he's coming on the break, and even in the half court, despite his limitations as a jump shooter, he can operate the pick and roll and fits perfect with any type of lob threat big, as guys like Richaun Holmes and Willie Cauley-Stein have had their better offensive seasons because of the effectiveness of DeAaron Fox out of the pick and roll. But now that we've talked about his strengths, let's now transition into his weaknesses, because there are a couple of weaknesses that we need to touch on. For starters, when it comes to the obvious, it's the three-point shooting. He is not the best three-point shooter in the world, as he shot below league average on nearly 6 attempts last season, and even in the mid-range game, he's still relatively below average as he shoots 39%. When you watch the film, opposing teams do go under his screens, as giving him a jump shot is more beneficial for the opposing defender instead of just giving him an open lane to the basket. And as good as he is in driving kick situations, whether it's applying pressure in the paint or playmaking in transition by finding the open shooter on the perimeter or on a cut or just in the fast break situation, he does struggle with his half-court playmaking because, like I said earlier, teams do sag off and it can cut off some passing lanes. But another thing about DeAaron Fox that a lot of people forget is his defense, as he is not really a plus defender. I wouldn't call him a liability, but he has definitely underachieved as a defender in the league because he had really high expectations on that side of the ball coming in, as his athleticism and speed combined with his lateral quickness in college gave him a lot of potential on that side of the ball, not only as an on-ball defender but even as an off-ball defender by anticipating passing lanes. But so far in Sacramento, on ball he isn't really that great, and even off the ball he does ball watch a lot, hence it does limit how impactful he can be on the defensive side of the ball. But he doesn't really have that much help, I have to throw that out there. Buddy Hield, one of the worst perimeter defenders in the league, and Marvin Bagley, not a great defender at all whatsoever. And even Richaun Holmes, as good as he can be in moments with his energy, it's not really consistent because he is an undersized center. So as far as his strengths go, I would say it's playmaking and finishing at the rim, and he's put up really solid numbers throughout his career, establishing him as one of the best point guards in the league already, even before turning 25 years old. But as far as his weaknesses go, he definitely has a ways to go as a jump shooter, and a defender, and if he can piece those things together, not only do I believe he can become one of the more elite point guards in the NBA, but I believe he can become one of the more elite players as well.
Defense, that's what it is all about. Morant on the draw and just erupts over the top of Baines for the right-hand slam. My goodness.
Ja Morant. When it comes to Ja, he's drawn comparisons to that of Russell Westbrook, Derrick Rose, but I just look at Ja as Ja. As sure, he does have flashes of a D Rose here and there and a Russell Westbrook with the spring and athleticism and the bounce, but when you look at him play, he just has a special feel for the game that you don't see in a lot of young guys when they come into the league. And when you combine that with this athleticism that leads to great highlight plays, whether it's dunks or even some blocks and alley-oops, it's no secret why Ja is one of the biggest fan favorites in the league. But we might as well use that to segue into his strengths, because as far as his strengths go, the biggest strength I would say is his basketball IQ. Because for a player at this stage in his career, I would say that his mental understanding of the game far supersedes his years. As he just finished his sophomore season, this is a guy that has a great feel for the game. His handles are very smooth, he can finish at the rim, not only with his athleticism, but he has that finesse to him as well to be able to contort his body in midair. But the playmaking, man, the playmaking is on a different level from a lot of sophomores that I've seen in this league, because for somebody that does not have a jump shot, so teams do go under his screens, they give him the three-point shot, he still finds ways to set up his teammates even in the half court. I gotta say, he can operate the pick and roll, he can play make in transition, he can really do it all no matter what you ask of him. The assist numbers may not be gaudy like Chris Paul in his prime or Russell Westbrook with the triple doubles, but please watch the tape and you will know that Ja is a borderline elite playmaker already in the league, and that says a lot for a sophomore. And combine his playmaking with the fact that he is a great finisher due to his athleticism and his bounce, and like I said earlier, it's not just the dunks. The guy can go out there and do some of the most acrobatic layups due to his ability to contort his body in midair to avoid defenders from blocking his shot. And another thing about Ja that a lot of people undersell is the impact on that Grizzlies team. As coming into this season and last season, many people did not believe the Grizzlies would make the playoffs. As the first year Ja was there, many people thought they'd be a lottery team, as them being the second overall pick to take Ja Morant. That was for an obvious reason, and though they did miss the playoffs, had it not been for Jaren Jackson Jr.'s untimely injury in the bubble, there's a good chance they would have beaten the Portland Trail Blazers in the play-in game. So we've established they were literally just one win away and were the 8th seed before the play-in even happened. But the year after is really what showed me how impactful Ja can be on an NBA roster, as without Jaren Jackson Jr. for a majority of the season, the Grizzlies were still in playoff contention, and in the play-in game, you could argue that Ja outplayed Steph Curry, yes, the MVP, two-time MVP, and was an MVP candidate and had one of the greatest seasons of all time just this past season. You could argue that Ja outplayed him in that play-in game, as he led his team not only to beat them in that play-in game, but to also secure the 8th seed, as he averaged 30 points a game on one of the best defenses in the NBA, the Utah Jazz. Ja really just has a knack for showing up in big moments, and he consistently has done that as just a mere rookie and sophomore in the league, which just makes it that much more impressive. But enough of his strengths, let's now talk about the things that he doesn't really do that well on the court, such as his three-point shooting, or his just shooting overall, because Ja is a three-point shooter and a jump shooter period, he's not that good at it. As even you can go back to that Utah Jazz series, though he did average 30 points a game, and he even shot fairly well from 3 considering his standards, which is 32% on 6 attempts a game in that postseason series, as compared to the 30% that he shot on 4 attempts in the regular season. The Utah Jazz were just going under all his screens and sagging off of him completely to give him the three-point shot, because you'd rather him settle for jumpers instead of attacking the paint where he's best at. And sooner rather than later, he's going to have to start knocking those down with more consistency, but that's a topic for another discussion. But as far as the other weaknesses go in his game, there aren't really that many, but I would like to point out the defensive side of the ball, because many people say that Ja is a plus defender, and look, I'm not saying he's a liability, but he is not that great defensively, as he has other defensive pieces around him. A pest like Grayson Allen, a good defender in his backcourt like Dillon Brooks. In his rookie season, he played with Jaren Jackson Jr. And let's not forget, he also has Brandon Clark as well as Kyle Anderson at his disposal as well to aid him on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, DeAaron Fox, say what you want to say about his defense, but he does not have the players that Ja Morant has at his disposal on the defensive side of the ball. Hence, they can hide him, and a lot of people don't even realize he does lapse on that side of the ball more often than you would think. But that then brings us to my final verdict. Who do I believe is better between Ja Morant and DeAaron Fox? And my answer is very simple. It's DeAaron Fox, and it really shouldn't be that much of a debate, to be quite honest with you. Because as great as Ja Morant is, the only real argument is that Ja Morant is a better leader, I guess, but that's not a fair assessment on a guy like DeAaron Fox, who plays in Sacramento, which is a poverty franchise. On the basketball court, there really isn't anything that Ja does better other than finishing with a question mark, because though Ja is very athletic, he can finish at the rim with his bounce. DeAaron Fox does have his own bounce as well and is a great finisher in his own right. And as a jump shooter, even though they both have their own flaws, DeAaron Fox is still a much better three-point shooter, as though teams do go under his screens, they still give him far more attention than a guy like Ja Morant, who we just saw in the postseason. The Jazz gave him the Russell Westbrook treatment on the perimeter. And as far as playmaking and defense goes, if you want to give it to one or the other, the gap is just not that much in my opinion. And when you consider that Fox is a much better scorer, there really isn't no debate for Ja Morant over DeAaron Fox in my personal opinion. So my final verdict on who's better, I'm gonna give the edge to DeAaron Fox. But you guys let me know your opinions down below in the comment section. If you agree, let me know by dropping that like, you know what to do. And if you disagree, let me know by dropping a comment and why you disagree. I will interact with as many people as possible. Follow me on social media, the links are down below in the description box, and check out the Nothing But Action podcast. The link is down below in the description box, as we ranked our top 50 players in the NBA on the last episode. You guys stay safe and have a blessed day. Your boy Young Mustard is signing out. Peace.